Hey everyone, this is Dirterafi and I'm back with another commentary. Today we're going to be looking at a user called AeroDragon2 and Phantom N Productions. They decided to do a top 10 worst RPG cliches list, and it's broken up in between two parts. So yeah, we're going to take a look at that and see how far we get. By the way, we're going to skip their intro. Except for this part.
Keep in mind, we're only focusing on cliches that are mostly exclusive to RPGs, so as much as we want to include something like forced failure, we can't.
Because this is going to come back to bite them in the ass later on in the video.
One of the things that make RPGs stand out is they're focused on story. With a great story, it usually has some twists and turns in story that can make a plot interesting and always keep you guessing.
But then there are those plot twists that you can see coming from a mile away.
It's later on. Guys, you're talking about crappy plot twists, and the problem that I have with this thing is that it's not mostly exclusive to RPGs. It's pretty much exclusive to anything that has any form of story. You aren't going to just find these in RPGs. In fact, for the most part, you're going to find them in just about everything else you look at, whether it be a movie, a book, or if you want some more video game-based examples, any genre you play.
What makes this cliche bad is that for something that focuses on story, it is very insulting to your intelligence that developers don't expect you to see it coming.
One of the worst examples that comes to mind is in Pokemon X and Y. Since we already saw Team Flare before Lumio City, when I first saw Lysandre, I thought to myself, okay, he has to be the leader of Team Flare.
Alright, that's a cool example at all, but the problem that I have with this is the fact that it's for children. The game is primarily marketed towards children, and let me tell you something, at least in my case, I didn't give a shit about the story when I was playing Generations 1 or 2. The major thing that I was concerned about was catching the goddamn Pokemon.
Behold the power of the Changeling Queen.
If only the plot twist in X and Y wasn't so obvious.
Hey, but at least you can say Lysandre's character.
This random jump cut has been brought to you by lack of retakes.
Alright, I got some new gear. Let's see what it does. What? I can't equip it? What is this madness?
As Arrow stated, the equipment specifications are really annoying in a lot of RPGs. Like, imagine you find this cool new weapon that can take down whatever is in your path, and when you try to equip it, you can't.
This is a problem in many RPGs. Xenoblade Chronicles is a perfect example. There are a ton of weapons and armor that are either character specific or have a weight that only certain characters can use.
Okay, so pretty much the issue is not the fact that you can't use the equipment, but rather that not everyone can use the equipment. How is this an issue?
Another example is in Fire Emblem Awakening with the dark magic abilities. Trust me, if you don't have a dark magic user on your team, you will, and I mean you will, have a lot of dark magic arts in your arsenal you can't use.
Oh, come on, you couldn't have found that many.
I had 30 by the end of the game.
Touché.
What makes this annoying is that when you don't have a character that uses these items, they're a waste until you get a character who can actually use them.
However, this is understandable as only certain characters can wield certain weapons, so it can be forgiven to an extent, but it is still annoying.
Wait, what? See, I didn't initially catch this when I watched the video for the first time, but what you're effectively saying here is that you can somewhat forgive this annoyance because of the very reason it's on your list. Where does this make sense?
Think of this. You're in a battle. You're doing great. Then one of your allies learns a new move. You see it and can't wait to use it. But when you do use it, something bad happens. It does damage to your allies and to yourself.
We all know them. Those attacks we don't use unless we know they are safe to use. The series that immediately springs to mind is Pokemon. There are a ton of moves that attack allies as well as opponents, cause recoil damage, or lower the user's stats.
This would be fine if there weren't many moves that cause this trope, such as Takedown, Earthquake, Flare Blitz, Discharge, Overheat, the list goes on.
Okay, guys, this may sound crazy, but there's an easy remedy for this issue. There's a very easy remedy for the issue that you're describing. It's called reading the description of the attack. I mean, I don't know what RPGs that you've been playing, but the RPGs that I've played, at least, allow you to do just that, so you don't launch a suicidal attack, which they somewhat acknowledge.
Anyway, the reason it didn't get higher is because these can be avoided if you ignore them or use other moves instead.
So if you could choose to not use them as moves, what's the issue?
Alright, I'm all done here. Let's move on. Wait, what? No! Go away! I don't want to fight you! Ugh! Why don't you go away? Why does this keep happening?
Out of all the cliches on this list, this one has to be the most infamous. We have only seen a few RPGs without this trope, but anyway, onto the cliche itself. Random encounters appear when you least expect it, considering they're called random encounters.
Okay, I'm going to skip this segment for one simple reason. You're discussing random encounters. You're discussing them, by the looks of things, in a turn-based RPG-like setting. And the problem with this is that you're talking about a turn-based RPG. There are very few ways that they can handle combat that doesn't involve, to some capacity, random encounters and still have it be a feasibly fun game. Guys, I think you need to learn how to count.
Hey, why are we at number 7?
Because that's where we last saved?
Man, now we have to
Oh,
start
it was
all
just to set up a
over.
poor joke.
Yeah, can you imagine that happening in an RPG?
This may seem to happen in all genres, but RPGs are especially worse, as they're usually longer than other games, making it a pain to do over.
Do you know what happened to me on my first playthrough of Mega Man Battle Network 2? At that point, I didn't know you could save at any time. So while I was on the network, I came across a reconstructed Quick Man, got my butt handed to me, then realized the last time I saved was about a half hour ago.
One for me was in Pokemon Platinum, when I was raising a Zubat into a Golbat, and when I did, I turned the game off without saving.
We hate this cliche because it's so annoying.
Cliché? You're talking about user error. It's not the game's fault that you forgot to save, and it sure as hell isn't an RPG trope. It's literally user error. It is all it is. You can't do something idiotic and then blame the game because you did something idiotic. My God. Why don't we see what they have to say for the next part?
How about we just jump to the number 4 entry?
Sorry, we're restricted to the number 5 segment.
Oh, come on!
Hey, it's bound to happen.
This happens in a lot of RPGs, and it doesn't matter how many times it shows up, it's still annoying.
This cliche happens way more times than it should because it's freaking ridiculous how a group of magic users and warriors can't get to a small town, but when you do make it, people are already there. Why?
Alright, so now we're being mad at the games for being linear. Why?
Brush my hair, my dear minion.
Anyway, since Aero here is the only one with a bit of sanity left, he'll explain why this isn't higher.
The reason it didn't get higher is because the more you see it, the more you get used to it. And most of the time, it does have story relevance.
You know, I just realized something. What's the point of making a top worst RPG trope list if you're going to find ways to excuse every single thing on your list? You literally just explained why this trope exists.
Critical hits are really infamous in RPGs as an attack that is randomly chosen to become more powerful than a regular attack.
I'm going to go ahead and skip this part because once again, they find a way to justify it.
The reason it isn't in the top 3 is because of the rare chance it goes in your favor, it can be useful.
I mean, seriously, the majority of this list boils down to, oh, these tropes are horrible, but they're not that bad. I'm going to go ahead and skip the next segment only because I have absolutely no information on the examples that they use. Effectively, it's about bosses that use reinforcements, that summon reinforcements, and the only really thing I could say about that is any boss that I fought that did that, I generally just focused on the boss, killed them, killed the reinforcements, and then I was happy. They can't really summon reinforcements when they're already dead.
Hey Aero, I'm so close to beating this one boss. Alright, almost there, and
What's the problem?
it just took me out in one hit. I formed a strategy, but then it just took me down straight to Antarctica.
Well, what killed you?
The overpowered attack!
Big surprise.
If there's one thing that can sour your experience, it's that one boss with that one attack that can obliterate you in no time flat.
You see, RPGs focus on strategy, so you can use your skill and advantages to plan ahead in the battle.
You know what they also focus on? Stats. Meaning if your enemy's numbers are much bigger than yours, you're likely going to die unless you're incredibly lucky.
I can feel my magic getting stronger.
Tales of the Abyss is another good example of this trope because a lot of the bosses have attacks that, while easy to avoid, will absolutely destroy you if you get caught in them.
I actually haven't played this game either, but we don't need to because we're talking about real-time RPGs, and you just said it yourself. The attacks are easily avoided. So, once more, what's the issue?
The previous 9 cliches may have been bad, but at least they were somewhat tolerable. But number 1 is completely intolerable. It's in virtually every RPG, and no matter how much you want it gone, it will never go away.
Even some of the most infamous cliches on this list don't even touch the scale of this cliche. It's the most despicable, destructive, horrid.
Alright, let's cut to the chase. It's status ailments.
Admit it, you knew this would be high. Whenever you pick up an RPG, you will see status ailments.
I challenge you to name one RPG without this trope. Really? No? Alright then.
Status ailments is probably the most common trope in RPGs, but probably has the most variations.
Poison, blindness, paralysis, confusion, sleep, and the list goes on!
Okay. So the number 1 spot on your list is taken up by status ailments, and yes, they can be somewhat irritating, I will give you that. However, there's one issue. It gave freaking critical hits a free pass because they could be used in your favor. So why doesn't this one? I mean, I don't know if you realize this, but in games, hell, even Pokemon, in games where status ailments are a thing, your opponents aren't the only ones that can use them. You can too! For example, bosses that summon reinforcements. Put it to sleep. Paralyze it. Inflict it with some sort of bleeding effect so you can focus on the little guys while the big guy still takes damage. Buff up your attack. Debuff theirs. The list goes on. Hell, all Metapod does is buff itself. And even then, it's not like RPGs don't give you items that can help you cure status effects, like Final Fantasy. Paralyzed? Pop an antidote. Petrified? Pop gold needle. Congratulations, you're not petrified anymore, now are ya?
But hey, despite being able to work in your favor, this is clearly the worst RPG trope.
The other cliches may be pestering, but status can be the difference between victory and defeat.
According to you, so are criticals! My god, we're gonna stop the video here. We're gonna cut the video short right here, because quite frankly, this is just the critical attack section all over again, only they're using the term status ailments. So what do I think of the video? I think it's not good. I mean, it's not the worst countdown list I've ever seen, but it sure as hell isn't a good one. The major issues that I have with it are as follows. They constantly justify why some of the things are present in RPGs. Constantly! It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous how they'll bitch about, what was it, critical attacks, and then say, oh, but it's okay because they can sometimes work in your favor. And then the number 1 fucking spot is status ailments, which can be used in your favor. For example, the overpowered attack? You can probably fix that with status ailments. The restricted area trope, they justify by saying that, generally speaking, it has story relevance. Well, if that's the case, then why is it on your list? And the worst, the absolute worst, bar none thing that they complained about as a worst RPG trope is the fact that you lose progress when you forget to save. I mean, fuck, the next thing you're gonna tell me is that you lose a life every single time you die in Mario. This video was not good, and you know it. This video, there is no possible way that you could have sat down, watched this video, and said, yeah, Yeah, that's good! Let's post it on the internet for everyone to see! Are you fucking serious, people? That's all I have to say. This is your Terraface signing off.